God. Okay. So we are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7, entitled Lord Chaitanya and Five Features. And we're going to start with text. One second.
I think it was 117.
I'm sorry?
I think it was text number 117.
117.
117, yeah.
Yeah, 117.
I think you're right. Absolutely right. 117.
Yes,
Okay.
117.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'll do is okay. So once again, it's Adi Lila, chapter 7, text 117, text 117. जीव तत्व शक्ति कृष्ण तत्व शक्तिमान गीता विष्णु पुराण आदि ताहाते प्रमाण. Translation: the living entities are energies, not the energetic. The energetic is Krishna. This is very vividly described in the Bhagavad Gita, the Vishnu Puran, and other Vedic literatures. Purport. So somebody wants to read the purport?
I can, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Bhakti Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. As already explained, there are three prasthanas on the path of advancement in spiritual knowledge, namely Nyaya Prasthana, Vedanta philosophy, Shruti Prasthana, the Upanishads and Vedic mantras, and Smriti Prasthana, the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Puranas, etc. Unfortunately, Mayavadi philosophers do not accept the Smriti Prasthana. Smriti refers to the conclusions drawn from the Vedic evidence. Sometimes Mayavadi philosophers do not accept the authority of the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas, and this is called Ardha Kukuti Nyaya, the logic of half a hen. If one believes in the Vedic literatures, one must accept all the Vedic literatures recognized by the great acharyas. But the Mayavadi philosophers accept only the Nyaya Prasthana and Shruti Prasthana, rejecting the Smriti Prasthana. Here, however, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cites evidence from the Gita, Vishnu Purana, etc., which are Smriti Prasthana. No one can avoid the personality of Godhead in the statements of the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, such as the Mahabharata and the Puranas. Lord Chaitanya therefore quotes a passage from the Bhagavad Gita 7.5.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So this is a continuation of the description by Lord Chaitanya, the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. So in the previous verse, we compared the Lord with the big fire and us, the living entities, with the spark in that fire. Now, we're talking about Krishna being the energetic, Shaktiman, the one who has the energy or owner of the energy, and living entity, the Jiva Tattva, as the Shakti. So we are the energy, and Krishna is the owner of that energy or energetic. And the point being made in the purport, and is implied in Lord Chaitanya's words, is that even though there are three paths of advancement in spiritual knowledge, known as Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya. So Shruti are the Vedas, basically, Vedas, Upanishads, etc. Smriti are the what you call Puranas and history. So like Mahabharata is the history. Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata, which is also history. Excuse me. And Puranas, the 18 Puranas we know about. So these Puranas and all the spiritual Bhagavad Gita, etc., Mahabharata, etc., they're based on the logical conclusion of the understanding by the great acharyas of the Vedic mantras. It's also combined with their realizations and their visualizations. But the point what is also making is that the Mayavadis, they'll accept the Nyaya Prasthan, which is Vedanta Sutra, which is basically, all the Vedas put together in a aphorism form, which is the, sutra in Hindi, Sanskrit they call it, which is basically the summary in few words, very precise words described. So that's the Vedanta Sutra. So they believe Vedas and the Vedanta, but they do not believe in Smriti, which is based on the Vedanta, or Vedas. And Prabhupada saying in his purport that that's the half-hen logic. Does everybody understand what half-hen logic is? Anybody wants to tell me? What is half-hen logic? Ardha Kukut Nyaya. We read that in chapter
Hare Krishna,
5.
Prabhuji.
Sujata Mataji, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. So we raise hands only for the eggs, not the head part. So some people wants only the result.
Can you speak a little bit louder, Mataji?
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. So when we raise hens, some people wants only the back part of the hen because it gives eggs, so not the head of the hen.
Yes. Yes, you're right. So that's the story she's referring to about the farmer who had a hen, and he realized that the back part of the hen gives eggs which he can sell and make money, but the front part of the hen only eats, which costs him money. So you see, if I get rid of the head, then my cost will go away. I will only have revenue. And that is called half-hen logic, because you can imagine if we ignore the head, or in this case, in this story, the farmer actually cuts the head off, and the whole hen is gone. So you cannot have one without the other. If you need the back of a hen, you have to have the front of the hen also. So similarly, how is it that you can accept the Vedas and the Vedanta Sutra, but not accept the Puranas and Mahabharata, Gita, etc., which are also based on the same Vedas? And that's the point Prabhupada is making. Therefore, this is half in logic, which is basically illogical and can only cause you harm, not any benefits. And then Prabhupada is mentioning that Gita, Mahabharata, Puran, etc., they established the fact that Lord is the energetic and we are the energy. And that's explained in next chapter, next verse. Is quoting from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. So, aparayam sastonyam prakritim vidhime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Translation. Besides these inferior energies, O mighty Arjun, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resource of this material inferior nature. So now, this is 7.4 and 7.5. This is 7.5. Before that was the verse where he talks about his 8 separated energies. Bhumi, Rapo, Anlo, Vayu, Khamano, Buddhirevcha, Ahankara, Itijemme, Bhinna, Shakti, Ashtada. So he's talking about the 8 energies, and then this was saying, besides those 8 inferior energies, this superior energy, which is the living entity. Again, the point being made, these are energies. Krishna is the owner of the energy, energetic. So let's read the purport.
Prabhuji,
Huh.
Prabhuji, something has been going.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No, I can't. Yeah, thank you. No, Prabhuji, I've been having this this thing in my mind, and I want to get rid of this. Okay.
Okay.
Now, please forgive me if I'm saying something wrong, but I'm not against Prabhupada. I'm not against ISKCON, but I've had this question from others. So I have many times, wondered how to answer that, and I'm so looking forward to you, Prabhu. So the question is, you know how Prabhupada in pretty much in most of the purports, he keeps on referring to the Mayavadi philosophers, Mayavadi philosophy, right? So, and one person even asked me, how come a guru like that is, calling others as rascals and fools, and I mean, it's not like a very gentleman kind of thingy. And they also said they belong to another sampradaya, like a Sri sampradaya or something. And then they said, in our philosophy, like, we don't usually compare. We don't say, oh, the ISKCONites say this, the ISKCON people say this. So why are you always worried about what others are doing? Like, why does it bother you? Why is Prabhupada always bringing Mayavadis into this? It's not his business, right? Like they were saying that. For one part of the question, I was able to answer. I said it's not Prabhupada alone using the word, fools and rascals. Lord Krishna has used it like in a good way. In Bhagavad Gita, he calls people's mudas, right? Which is what Prabhupada is directly translating as fools. So, and he's a Jagat Guru. So, gurus have this authority to admonish disciples when they go wrong, and then he's doing it in a very compassionate way. But then the other part of the question, I don't know if I ever gave them a satisfying answer, but I just thought that was the right way to do it. But the other part of the question of why is Prabhupada always, trying to nitpick on the Mayavadis? Why can't he just talk about his own philosophy? How do I answer that question, Prabhu?
So first of all, how would you feel if I said to you, I'm just making this up. Don't take it personally. I don't mean anybody. Now, feel if I said, well, you don't have eyes. You can't see properly. You don't have hands. You can't do anything. You don't have legs. You can't walk. I say, here I am. I can see. I can walk. I can touch things. What do you mean I don't have it? Oh, no. You don't have it. You don't understand. You don't have it. That's what Mayavadis are doing. Krishna, you don't have arms. You don't have legs. You don't have ears. You don't have eyes. You have nothing. You have no form. So Krishna is offended, and then when he comes as Lord Chaitanya, he had a similar situation with a devotee, Mukunda. And again, I could be wrong because sometimes I get mixed up with Murari Gupta and Mukunda, but I think it was Mukunda.
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya Prabhu?
No. Either Mukunda or Murari Gupta. So I think it's Mukunda. And when he was doing his Mahaprakash Lila, he was giving darshan in different forms to devotees. But he refused to allow Mukunda to come in. And people were surprised. They were saying, he's such a great devotee. Even you start dancing when he sings. So why won't you allow him? And he said, because he's associating with Mayavadis now. And sometimes he goes to Mayavadis, sometimes he comes to us. And let me tell you, this is the Mahaprabhu talking, Lord Chaitanya talking. And let me tell you, when a Mayavadi takes my name, I feel that he's taken a sword and is cutting me up limb by limb.
Oh, Krishna.
This is Lord Chaitanya speaking. So he said, you have to stay away from them because they will get you all confused and away from the real thing. Now, understand that Lord Shiva came to establish Mayavad for a reason upon orders of Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu. But he himself did not believe what he was writing because he wrote the Jagannathashtakam. It basically talks about who's Krishna, where he is, what's he doing, all those kind of things. He did the Radha Kripa Kataksha Bhajanam, glorifying Radharani. With that, he said, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Mudamate. He used the same word, right? So Prabhupada is simply carrying on the tradition, saying, my dear disciples, stay away from Mayavadis because Lord Chaitanya said so. Krishna is calling them Mudas. Lord Chaitanya is saying, they are like carrying a sword, cutting me limb by limb. Stay away from them. So what's wrong with that? He's honest, repeating what Lord has said. Both Lords, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna. And so why waste your time? That's the other thing. Why waste your time in arguing with them when you can stay away and study Srimad Bhagavatam? Also, it's a well-known fact that no matter what, you have to be put with Lord Chaitanya to convince them that Lord is a form. So again, why are you going to spend your energy and time and everything in trying to convince somebody who's just not going to be convinced? So move away.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense, Prabhu. Thank you.
I'm glad. Shila Mataji had her hand up.
Prabhuji, something came to my mind when this discussion was happening. Also, in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vyasadeva, who himself is a Shaktavish avatar, the incarnation of Godhead himself, he uses such language like Mandasumanda Bhagya Mandbhagya hai Upadritaha and Mood Mate, and all this language is used by
Yeah.
Srila Vyasadeva himself. So it is written in Srimad Bhagavatam like, way back. So I think it is absolutely fine for Srila Prabhupada to use such language.
Exactly. You're right. Okay.
Can I say something, Prabhu?
Only if you like.
Okay. So first of all, please apologize. There is not a single purport ever, anywhere, where Prabhupada is criticizing a personality. He's
Correct.
clearly criticizing a philosophy,
Correct.
not a personality.
It's a very good point.
So, Mayavad philosophy, not a personality. In fact, I can show those people 1,000 places where Srila Prabhupada is glorified Sripad Adi Shankaracharya.
Yeah.
Okay. And number two, even in the life of the Alvars, even Andal Alvar, even in the life of a Quraysha, there has been several instances where they have criticized and destroyed Mayavadis.
Yeah.
And so if Mataji was referring to Sri Vaishnavas, so Mataji, like I'm not a big blaster or whatever, but you send those Sri Vaishnavas towards me. And I will show them point to point exactly where even Sripad Ramanujacharya, even in Sri Bhashya, he's criticizing the Mayavadi philosophy. In fact, he's even criticizing the disciples of Adi Shankaracharya. So he's literally criticizing the persons over there. Whereas Sri Prabhupada has just all again and again, only he has criticized the philosophy, the understanding of the Adi Shankara's philosophy.
That's a very
Oh,
good
beautiful. Very good
And-
point, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yes, and you would see even in the life of the 12 Alvars, if you read that book, that is from Sri Vaishnavas only. You will see left and right they are like to prove their Shishta Advaita Siddhanta, they are criticizing the Advaita Siddhanta left and right.
So, which book is that, Prabhu, you're referring to?
The life and the history of Alvars.
Okay.
And these Alvars are like 12 weapons of Lord Vishnu. So like, and they themselves are left and right criticizing.
Okay.
So yeah, and in fact, even in Sri Vaishnava Mataji, you have to know that there are 4 divisions.
Okay, so let's talk about the details. I will
Yes.
get totally off the topic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Okay, who wants to read the purport of 118? First paragraph.
I can read, Prabhu.
Oh, please go ahead, Mataji.
In the Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, constitute the gross energy of the absolute truth, and that there are also 3 subtle energies, namely the mind, intelligence, and false ego, or identification with the phenomenal world. Thus, the entire cosmic manifestation is divided into 8 energies, all of which are inferior. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama Maya Duratyaya. The inferior energy known as Maya is so strong that although the living entity does not belong to this energy, due to the superior strength of the inferior energy, the living entity, Jiva Bhuta, forgets his real position and identifies with it. Krishna says distinctly that beyond the material energy, there is a superior energy which is known as the Jiva Bhuta or living entities. When in contact with material energy, this superior energy conducts all the activities of the entire material phenomenal world.
Yeah, thank you. So again, the point being made is that that actually Maya is an inferior energy. The living entity is superior energy. Still, because of the strength of the Maya and the size of Maya compared to the size of the living entity, is able to overcome or overpower, I should say, overpower it. And then the living entity comes under the control of Maya. And as Prabhupada was quoting 714, chapter 7, text 14, Mam Maya Duratya is very difficult to win over. And of course, Krishna used the formula for winning over her, which is to surrender to him. But until you do that, you can't. And it's in contact with Maya that the living entity is performing all sorts of activities in the material world and getting more and more entangled in the material world and coming more and more under the influence of Maya. Okay, let's continue. Next paragraph, please, somebody.
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll read it.
Go ahead, Mataji.
The supreme cause of Krishna, Janmadi Ashya Yatha, who is the origin of all energies, which works variously. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is both inferior and superior energies, and the difference between them is that the superior energy is factual, whereas the inferior energy is the reflection of the superior. A reflection of the sun in the mirror or on water appears to be the sun, but is not. Similarly, the material world is but a reflection of the spiritual world. Although it appears to be factual, it is not. It is only the temporary reflection, whereas the spiritual world is a factual reality. The material world, which its gross and subtle form, is merely a reflection of a spiritual world.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So this is a very important paragraph, and it's saying that Krishna is the origin of all energies, actually origin of everything. Janmadi Asyata, Ham Sarvasya Prabhu, Matta Sarvam Pravartate, so many places. Krishna is the origin of everything, including the incarnations, starting from Lord Balaram. He has two energies, inferior and superior. The difference between them is the superior energy, excuse me, is factual, and the inferior energy, Maya, is a reflection of the superior energy. An example is given that if you look at the sun in a mirror, it looks like the real sun, but it's not. Look at the sun in a water surface, looks like sun, but it's not. Similarly, the inferior energy is simply a reflection or shadow of the superior energy called Yoga Maya. And so is this world. This world is also a reflection of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is real in that it's eternal, and the material world manifests and unmanifest. So it's temporary. Okay. Next paragraph, please.
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
Okay. The living entity is not a product of material energy. He is spiritual energy, but in contact with the matter, he forgets his identity. Thus, the living entity identifies himself with the matter and enthusiastically engages in material activities in the guises of technology, scientist, philosopher, etc. He does not know that he is not at all a material product, but is a spiritual. His real identity thus being lost, he struggles very hard in the material world. And the Hare Krishna movement, or Krishna conscious movement, is trying to revive his original consciousness. His activities in manufacturing a big skyscraper are evidence of intelligence, but this kind of intelligence is not at all advanced. He should know that his only real concern is how to get free from material contact by absorbing his mind in material activities. He takes material bodies again and again, and although he falsely claims to be very intelligent, in material consciousness he is not at all intelligent. We speak about the Krishna consciousness movement, which is meant to make people intelligent, the conditioned living entity therefore misunderstands it. He is so engrossed in the material concept of life that he does not think there can be any activity that are actually based on intelligence beyond the construction of skyscrapers and big roads and manufacturing of cars. This is the proof of Maya Aparata Jnana, or loss of all intelligence due to the influence of Maya. When a living entity is freed from such a misconception, he is called liberated. When one is actually liberated, he no longer identifies with the material world. The symptoms of mukti, liberation, is that one engages in spiritual activities instead of falsely engaging in material activities. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
So Actually, the word intelligent or intelligence is very interesting. I want to ask you, tell me, what is intelligent? What does that word intelligent mean? Who's
To differentiate between the right and wrong, Prabhuji?
Okay.
I think that is wise.
Hmm?
That is wise. Who can differentiate between right and wrong?
Okay, I'm looking for a little bit more than that. So
Could it be intelligence beyond the material world, spiritual intelligence, knowing who we are?
yeah, so basically, right from wrong, or um, knowing what the truth is, knowing what's my real interest, knowing what's good for me, what's not good for me.
Yeah.
All those things, right? So everything you said, all of you said is correct in different ways. But the point being made here is that in this paragraph is that those people who think they're intelligent enough to build a big skyscraper and big computers and uh, fast trains and airplanes and rockets and all those kind of things, they're not really intelligent. Why? Why is it that they're not really intelligent?
Because whatever they are gaining is temporary, Prabhuji.
So,
Whatever they are gaining is only on a material platform and is all temporary.
okay, I agree, but this is a little bit more.
Prabhuji, I'm reminded of that verse 10.10, where in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. So intelligence is by which a living entity can come to him.
Right. So that is by which you know the real purpose of your life, you know the real destination, and you know the real benefit of having gotten this human life. If you are working to get out of this miserable place, then you're intelligent. If you're working hard to make sure you come back, then where is your intelligence? So all the scientists, all the engineers, the architects, etc., are working very hard to do some amazing things and making sure they'll come back. So Prabhupada is saying, where's that intelligence then?
Right.
On the other hand, someone who's working on ensuring that they don't come back is really intelligent. Right? I think I told you a story about a king visiting his jail. And so all the prisoners had been given new clothes and all that. They sat in a big hall. And after speaking, the king said, you can ask me today for whatever you want. And one prisoner raised his hand and said, my wife is the best cook in the world. The food in the prison stinks. Can you please make an arrangement so my wife's cooking is provided to me? And the king said, done. Another person raised his hand and said, before I came to the jail, I was into bodybuilding. There's no gym in this jail. So my body's starting to rot. So can you please build a gym there? King said, done. Another person said something that said, everybody had their choices like that. King kept saying yes, yes, yes. Finally, one person said, my dear king, I screwed up once. I made a big mistake. And that's why I'm here. I promise you I'll never make that mistake again. Can you please release me from this jail?
Yep.
And the king said yes. So now who was really intelligent?
The last person.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the point. So what's the use of making all these big skyscrapers and all the scientific advancements and all those kind of things if all you're doing is making sure you keep coming back? That's not very intelligent. And that's the whole point. Okay.
Prabhuji, may I just ask a question here? So
Please.
those things are also important. It is what's intelligence and what's non-intelligence is. In what consciousness, with what purpose are those being built?
I totally agree. So, but what is the highest purpose?
So Prabhuji, if everybody were to think like that, then
No. First answer the question, then you can go on.
Yeah.
What's the highest purpose?
Our highest purpose is to basically, revive the consciousness of our eternal constitutional position, which is as a servitor of the Lord, right?
So rephrase it. What's the highest purpose for us?
Go back to Godhead.
Right, exactly. Develop love of Krishna and go back up to Godhead.
Love for Krishna, yes.
Okay. So now anybody who argues differently, is he really very intelligent? I mean, like you can say, I have a couple of friends, and this true story, couple of my previous classmates, they both could be Nobel Prize winners. They could be in the future. And because their discoveries, their work has been so much appreciated, so great. But are they really intelligent? Some people say, yeah, great. Otherwise, how can they be eligible for Nobel Prize? But are they really intelligent if they're coming back here and may come back as a skunk in the next life? And then who knows how many millions and billions of years he'll keep coming back as a snake and a skunk and an elephant, a dog and a cat. Where's that intelligence? Right?
But somebody has to build all that economic infrastructure, no?
Absolutely. And that's why in the verse that we quoted, it says people get involved in the activities of the material world, and that's where the world is going. But they are under the influence of Maya.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's verse 7:15, Namam Duskritano Mudha, Prapadante Naradama, Maya Apasat Jnana.
Yes.
See, these people are Maya Apasat Jnana. Their real intelligence has been taken away by Maya. They're saying, oh, we are so great. Look at what we discovered. Look at what we invented. Look at what we made. Yeah, but what did you do to yourself? Is it about the body or is it about the soul?
So the right way is to do all those things that man is doing, but with the consciousness that they are doing it for the Lord, but not for their own self-pleasure, but for his pleasure.
That is what Prabhupada did. He built 108 temples. He was doing it for the Lord.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You can make one skyscraper with 108 stories. You can make 108 single-story temples. What's more intelligent?
Right. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
No problem.
Prabhuji, I just want to make a comment here. That the spiritual knowledge is so strong or so great that by the blink of the eye, we have read in the scriptures, by the blinking of the eye, there were sages or the incarnation of the Lord, which built like unbelievable things just by the blinking of the eye. Like if we say Lord Kapildev, when he built like a unbelievable, what you can say, ship or something plane, where he take his wife and
Kardam Muni.
Yeah, that was Kardam Muni.
Yeah, that's right.
So what is the importance then of the skyscrapers and all that?
Thing, sure.
Like if somebody really achieves some spiritual knowledge, so what they can do, we cannot even the material scientists cannot even imagine about those things.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, next paragraph.
I can read it, Prabhuji.
What else? Go ahead.
Okay. Transcendental loving devotional service is the spiritual activity of the spirit soul. Mayavadi philosopher confuse such spiritual activity with material activity, but in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26 confirms Mamcha yo avyavicharan bhakti yogenu sevate sa gunan samtityayatan brahma bhuva kalpate. One who engage in the spiritual activities of unallowed devotional services, avyavicharan bhakti, is immediately elevated to the transcendental form, and he is to be considered Brahma Bhuta, which indicates that he is no longer in the material world, but in the spiritual world. Devotional service is enlightenment or awakening. When the living entity perfectly performs spiritual activity under the direction of the spiritual master, he becomes perfect in knowledge and understands that he is not God but a servant of the God. As explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivera Sabrupa hai Krishna Nityadat. In real identity of the living entity is that he is an eternal servant of the Supreme Chaitanya, Charitamrita, Lila. As long as one does not come to this conclusion, he must be in ignorance. This is also confirmed in the Lord, by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Bahunam janmane ante jnanvan mam parpadante. So Mahatma Sudurve. After many births of struggling for existence and cultivating knowledge, when one comes to the point of the real knowledge is surrendered into me. Such an advanced Mahatma or great soul is very rarely to be seen. Thus, although the Mayavadi philosophers appear to be very much advanced in knowledge, they are not yet perfect. To come to the point of perfect knowledge, they must voluntarily surrender to Krishna. Haribol.
Thank you, Guru. So again, going back to Mayavadis, they think bhakti is a material activity. And Prabhupada is giving the proof from Bhagavad Gita, which says bhakti is transcendental to all the material modes of nature, therefore cannot be material activity. Also, one who's performing pure devotional service is on a Brahma Bhuta platform, which is above the material world anyway. So therefore, this is the spiritual activity, and it corresponds with the real identity of the living entity, which is Jiva Swarupa, Krishna and Nidata. We are the eternal servant of Krishna. That's our intrinsic nature, and that's our original Swarupa, our original form. So until we come to that conclusion that we are eternally servant of Krishna, and therefore we must be performing devotional service for the pleasure of Krishna, we cannot be considered very intelligent. And it's not easy. It comes to people after a very long time. And again, Prabhupada quotes 7:19, which says, after many, many births, a jnani comes to the platform of bhakti. And the person who understands that Lord Krishna is everything is very rare. So again, unfortunately, not many of us are at that point where they consider Krishna to be all in all, without which we cannot really surrender truly. Only when we accept that Krishna is all in all powerful, all owning, all knowing, until we do all that, we cannot surrender fully. So therefore, it's very rare somebody to have that understanding, and therefore it's very rare to have a surrendered soul. But that's what we need to be. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Next, text 119. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Kshetrakyakya Tatha Para Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritiya Shaktir Ishate. The potency of Lord Vishnu is summarized in three categories, namely the spiritual potency, the living entities, and ignorance. The spiritual potency is full of knowledge. The living entities, although belonging to the spiritual potency, are subject to bewilderment. And the third energy, which is full of ignorance, is always visible in fruitive activities. It's a very long purport, but basically the summary of that is that the three potencies, so that is internal potency, Yogamaya, marginal potency, the living entity, and the external potency called Maya. The qualities of these potencies are that the spiritual potency or the internal potency is full of knowledge, Satchitananda. The living entities, the marginal potency, although Satchitananda, but because of its infinitesimal size, is very easily overpowered by Maya, which is, even though inferior in quality, is superior in size. And therefore, because of its size, overwhelms the small living entity. And superior energy comes under the control of inferior energy, and then does work of inferior quality, which is the material activities. Okay.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Mataji, go ahead.
It's a very basic question. I should know the answer, but suddenly it occurred to me that I didn't know what this was. So don't chastise me.
No, there's no chastisement.
So it says the living entities are the superior energy.
Yes.
But living entities is every living being, like even the animals, like 8.4 million species, because that should only be human beings, right? Because they only have knowledge.
You're confusing living entity with the body. Living entity is soul. Living entity means soul. The 8.4 million are bodies. Soul is still the same.
So the soul is full of knowledge?
Yeah. So I could be in any of those 8.4 million species next time. I could come back as skunk and bother you. Right? But my soul is still the same. So that's one thing. Is the soul full of knowledge? Yes, it is conscious, therefore it's full of knowledge, but not all knowledge. So Chaitanya, Krishna is the most conscious, has full knowledge. We have partial knowledge.
Thank you.
Chaitanya are our qualities.
Yes, I realized that it was such a basic question.
No, mother, it's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Just remember, living entity means soul,
souls.
not the body.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No. Okay. Why don't you read the purport then?
Sure. This is purport. This is a quotation from the Vishnu Puran 6.7.61. In the previous verse quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, it has been established that the living entities are to be categorized amongst the Lord's potencies. The Lord is potent and there are varieties of potencies. Parasya, Shaktir, Vividya, Shruyute. Now, in this quotation from the Vishnu Puran, this is further confirmed. There are varieties of potencies and they have been divided into three categories, namely spiritual, marginal, and external. Should I continue?
So let me just explain this.
Yeah.
Basically, again, coming back to the same point as the previous verse, Lord is the potent, means the energetic, and his three potencies: internal potency, living entity is the marginal potency, and the external potency or Maya. But there are many, many different potencies. It's just that they can be categorized in these three main categories. Okay. So Parasya Shakti Vidya Shruti is a quote from Shruta Upanishad. It basically says yes, many, many different types of energy, millions of them. Okay. Let's go on to the next paragraph.
Should I continue?
Go ahead.
The spiritual potency is manifested in the spiritual world. Krishna's form, qualities, activities, and entourage are all spiritual. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.5. Ajo api san avyatma bhutanam ishwaro api san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhamami atma maya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, by my spiritual potency I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Atma Maya refers to the spiritual potency. When Krishna comes to this or any other universe, he does so with his spiritual potency. We take birth by the force of the material potency, but as stated here, with reference to the Vishnu Purana, the Kshetra Gyan or living entity belongs to the spiritual potency. Thus, when we free ourselves from the clutches of the material potency, we can also enter the spiritual world.
Right. So, a very important point is being made that even though we may look like we're material, we are spiritual. It's just that because of the influence of Maya and our small size, we have started to identify with Maya under her influence. But that does not take away our purity. So once we free ourselves from the clutches of Maya, what's the process given in chapter 7, text 14 that we just talked about? To get rid of or get us away from the clutches of Maya, what's the process?
Surrender to me,
Surrender to me. Surrender to me. That's the only way. So when we surrender ourselves to Krishna, then we get out of the clutches of Maya, and then we are pure, free to enter the spiritual world. Because you have to be spiritual to enter the spiritual world. Anything material cannot enter the spiritual world. So once we are fully spiritual in that, we get rid of the material gross body and material subtle body, then only the spirit soul is left. We can go straight to the spiritual world. Okay?
Someone else wants to read, or should I continue?
Then let somebody else do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I can read, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Prabhu, yeah.
The material potency is the energy of darkness or complete ignorance of spiritual activities. In the material potency, the living entity engages himself in fruitive activities, thinking that he can be happy through expansion in terms of material energy. This fact is prominently manifest in this age of Kali because human society, not understanding the spiritual nature, is busily expanding in material activities. The men of the present day are almost unaware of their spiritual identity. They think that they are products of the elements of the material world and that everything will end with the annihilation of the body. Therefore, they conclude that as long as one has a material body consisting of material senses, one should enjoy the senses as much as possible. Since they are atheists, they do not care whether there is a next life. Such activities are described in these verses, avidya karma samjanaya.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, once again, material potency of Maya is known as avidya. Avidya means ignorance or darkness. So, it's called energy of darkness as opposed to energy of light. So, which potency of Krishna is energy of light?
Internal potency, Prabhu.
Correct. Internal potency or Yoga Maya is the energy of light. And Maya, which is the shadow of the spiritual energy, Yoga Maya is energy of darkness. Now, suppose you are standing somewhere. When will you see your shadow?
If the light is behind.
If the light is behind. Exactly. So only when we put the energy of light behind us, which means we turn away from Krishna, then we see our shadow. If facing the light, you see the light, not your shadow. Correct? So when you're facing Krishna, we are in knowledge. We are away from Krishna, we see a shadow and we think and we act like we are in darkness, in avidya, in ignorance. Right? And in ignorance, when we see a shadow, can we tell if we are a good-looking person or an ugly person? Can the shadow tell you that?
No, Prabhu, no.
Can the shadow tell you whether a rich person or a poor person?
No.
Can the shadow tell you if an American, Canadian, or Indian?
No, not at all.
That means there's no knowledge in the shadow. Shadow means ignorance. So, but if you think shadow is all there is, then be happy seeing the shadow. Because most of the people in the age of Kali don't understand their spiritual nature. They think shadows are everything. So Maya is a reflection, shadow of Yoga Maya. They think that's everything. But that's the way they're looking at it. So in their ignorance, they accept the energy of ignorance as everything. And then they act in ignorance, they think they're the highest intelligence. Okay? Does that make sense?
You know, the ignorant people nowadays, because it says here that they think there is one life which will end with the body. People use that term YOLO.
Yeah.
You only live once.
That's right.
So enjoy.
Enjoy.
When it comes to eating, go enjoy.
That's
YOLO.
right. And you will not convince them otherwise. They'll tell you, "Sadhe naal rahoge to aish karoge." You know, if you stay with me, you'll have fun. Right? That's their philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, and
Prabhuji, what did you say in Hindi? What was that?
it says if you stay with me, you'll have great time of life.
Oh.
Time of life. You stay with me.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the point I'm making, that, you know, for them, there's no next life. As Mother said, you only live once, and therefore do whatever you want. There's no consequences. But the consequences are there, whether you know it or not. I talk about many times, of course, ignorance doesn't mean you can be excused. He says ignorance of law is no excuse. But of course, there are many, many places. So you can't go to a judge and say, I didn't know that law. Well, too bad. You're still going to be punished anyway. Okay. All right. Next paragraph.
I will read, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead, Prabhu.
The material energy is separated from the spiritual energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, although it is originally created by the Supreme Lord, he is not actually present within it. The Lord also confirms in Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Mat Sathani Sarabhutani, everything is resting on me. This indicates that everything is resting on his own energy. For example, the planets are resting within outer space, which is separated energy of Krishna. The Lord explained in Bhagavad Gita 7.4, Mumir aponalo vayu kham mano buddhir evcha ahankara ityam me vina prakritir aspada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. The separated energies act as if it were independent. But here it is said that although such energies are certainly factual, they are not independent but merely separated.
Yeah.
Very good.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, once again, the material energy is separated from the spiritual energy of the Lord. And that's what's called separated energy because the Lord is not in it. Lord is in the spiritual energy, Yogamaya, but not in Mahamaya. And that is why when the Lord wants to start the creation, simply glances at it. So there's no connection. It's like if you go enter a garden and smell a rose. You're not touching the rose, you're not going near the rose, from a distance you're smelling it. Similarly, you can see an object 10 miles away, if it's large enough. Sometimes we see an airplane in the sky, it's 5 miles high, but you can see it, there's no connection. We're not sitting in the plane. So similarly, the Lord is not in the external energy. That's called separated energy, right? But everything in the material world rests in them. So much Sthani Sarvbhutani, everything resting in him, meaning in his energy. Okay? The separated energy acts as if it were independent, but although the energies are factual, they're not independent, but merely separated. So Maya is not independent of Krishna. Separated, yes, but not independent. Okay? All right, let's read it further to understand this point better. Who wants to read this?
I can read it, Prabhu.
Go ahead, yes.
The separated energy can be understood from a practical example. I compose books by speaking into a dictaphone, and when the dictaphone is replayed, it appears that I am speaking personally, but actually I'm not. I spoke personally, but then the dictaphone tape, which is separate from me, acts exactly like me. Similarly, the material energy originally emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it acts separately, although the energy is supplied by the Lord. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Maya Dyakshena Prakati Suyate Sa Characharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. Under the guidance or superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the material energy works as if independent, although it is not actually independent.
Right. So that's the bottom line. What Maya acts as if independent, but it's not, as Krishna says, Maya Dakshin Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. It's working under my direction, under my guidance, under my supervision. So, yes, it's separated, but it's not really independent, although it looks like it's independent. And that is why those of us under the influence of Maya think we're independent, not dependent upon Krishna, which is obviously wrong. Okay, let's read the next paragraph.
Can I read, Prabhu?
Of course, Mataji, go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure.
In this verse from the Vishnu Purana, the total energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is classified in three divisions, namely the spiritual or internal potency of the Lord, the marginal potency or Kshetragna, the living entity, and the material potency, which is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and appears to act independently. When Srila Vyasadeva, by meditation and self-realization, saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he also saw the separated energy of the Lord standing behind him. Apashyat purusham purnam mayam cha tadapashrayam. Vyasadeva also realized that it is this separated energy of the Lord, the material energy, that covers the knowledge of the living entities. Yaya samohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam. The separated material energy bewilders the living entities, jivas, and thus they work very hard under its influence, not knowing that they are not fulfilling their mission in life. Unfortunately, most of them think that they are the body and should therefore enjoy the material senses irresponsibly, since when death comes, everything will be finished. This atheistic philosophy also flourished in India, where it was sometimes propagated by Charvaka Muni. Who said, should I read that, Prabhu?
Yeah, please go ahead.
ऋणं कृत्वा घृतं पिबेत् यावत् जीवे सुखं जीवेत् भास्मीभूतस्य देहस्य कुतः पुनरागमनो भवेत्.
Finish it.
His theory was that as long as one lives, one should eat as much as ghee as possible. In India, ghee, clarified butter, is a basic ingredient in preparing many varieties of food. Since everyone wants to enjoy nice food, Charvaka Muni advised that one eats as much ghee as possible. One may say, I have no money, how shall I purchase ghee? Charvaka Muni, however, says, if you have no money, then beg, borrow, or steal, but in some way secure ghee and enjoy life. For one who further objects that he will be held accountable for such unauthorized activities as begging, borrowing, and stealing, Charvaka Muni replies, you will not be held responsible. As soon as your body is burned to ashes after death, everything is finished.
That's a blind man trying to convince blind man. And as Bhagavatam says, they both end up in a ditch. So when authorities talk nonsense like this, people become nonsense very easily. And that's what's happening. There are a lot of people who actually believe that, YOLO, as Mataji was saying. You only want one life to live. When you die, everything goes with it. So you might as well enjoy it. And if you have to beg, borrow, steal, you have to cheat, you have to commit crimes, and so go ahead. What's the problem? And then convincing that there's no consequences of your acts. Clearly, if you don't believe that you are a living entity, your soul, not this body, then the whole logic fails. But when you actually believe you're this body, it starts to make sense. And that's what happens. And this is why the very first thing Krishna talks about when Arjuna says, I don't know what my duty is, I don't know what my purpose of life is. The very first concept he talks about is soul. Because if you don't know who you are, how would you know what the purpose of your life is? If you don't know who you are, how would you know what's good for you, what's bad for you? Right? So Charvak Muni is trying to convince everybody that, look, just go have a great time, because once you die, is finished. And clearly, that's not what Krishna is saying. Okay, next paragraph.
I can read, Prabhuji.
Go ahead, Mataji.
This is called ignorance. From the Bhagavad Gita, it is understood that one does not die with the annihilation of the body, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The annihilation of the body involves changing to the another. Tatha dehitara paraptyaha. Therefore, to perform irresponsible activities in the material world is very dangerous. Without knowledge of the spirit soul and its transmigration, people are eluded by the material energy to engage in many such activities, such if one as if one could become happy simply by dint of material knowledge without reference to spiritual existence. Therefore, the entire material world and its activities are referred to as vidya karma samgyate. Continue.
No. So let's finish this. So
Okay.
Robert basically laughing, saying that's ignorance. If you don't believe in soul, then obviously all the decisions you do or the activities you do will be wrong and dangerous because consequences will be there, whether you believe it or not. And if you are totally in the material mode, totally under the conception of I'm this body, then you will do those ignorant things, but you cannot be happy simply from material knowledge because you are not just this body. Whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not, you will not. And therefore, the actual happiness will not come to you until you become spiritual. Okay. All right.
Okay. Should I continue, Prabhu?
Sure. Go ahead. I don't know if there's anybody.
In order to dissipate the ignorance of the human being who work under the material energy, which is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord comes down to revive their original nature of the spiritual activities. Yada yada hi dharmasya galanir bhavati bharata. As soon as they deviate from their original nature, the Lord comes to teach them. Sarva dharman paritajya mam ekam sharanam vraj. My dear living entities, give up all the material activities and simply surrender unto me for protection. Bhagavad Gita 18:66.
This is, sorry, so this is Krishna's compassion for the living entities. He sees us in ignorance, he sees us suffering. He says, I have to come down and leave the comforts of Goloka or Vakuntha and go to the miserable material world and help these poor souls who are suffering from ignorance. So therefore he comes down and gives us instruction. Says just simply give up all the other religion, surrender to me, and I will take care of you. You don't worry. So it's assuring everybody, I'll give you hope, but you have to come to me. Okay, go ahead. Finish it.
It is the statement of Karvaka Muni that one should beg, borrow, or steal money to purchase ghee and enjoy the life. Thus, even the greatest atheist of India recommends that one eat ghee, not meat. No one could conceive of human being eating meat like tigers and dogs, but men have become so degraded that they are just like animals and can no longer claim to have a human civilization.
Right. This is like the snowball effect. Does anybody know what a snowball effect is? Snowball effect.
Yeah, you take a small snowball and you keep rolling it in the snow and it grows bigger and bigger.
Right. So if you go on top of a hill and roll a snowball, as it goes down, it gains size. Similarly, when you give up spiritual knowledge and base your life on material knowledge, which is ignorance, the ignorance keeps on increasing. So even though Charvak Muni was an atheist, at least he talked about ghee. But now people have gone way beyond that. Now they're going to be eating meat and everything else, and some really abominable stuff because the ignorance has increased so much in the age of Kali. Okay, so much so that it says they can no longer claim to have a human civilization. So degraded. But that's the impact of giving up spiritual and running with material. Okay. Let's do the last verse, text 120. हेन जीव तत्व यहाँ लिखी पर तत्व आच्छन्न कर श्रेष्ठ ईश्वर महत्व. The Mayavad philosophy is so degraded that it has taken the insignificant living entities to be the Lord, the supreme truth, thus covering the glory and supremacy of the absolute truth with monism. So I am God, you are God, everybody's God, God. Here God, there God, everywhere God, God. So that's what's happened. So let's read the purport to understand this better. Anybody who's not read it yet?
I haven't read it, Prabhuji, yet.
Vichara Mataji, go ahead.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments in this connection that in all Vedic scriptures, the Jiva Tattva, the truth of all the living entities, is mentioned to be one of the energies of the Lord. If one does not accept that living entity to be minute, infinitesimal spark of the Supreme, but equates the Jiva Tattva with the Supreme Brahman or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it must be understood that his entire philosophy is based on a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, Shripad Shankaracharya purposely claimed the Jiva Tattva or living entities to be equal to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his entire philosophy is based on a misunderstanding, and it misguides people to become atheists whose mission in life is unfulfilled. The mission of human life, as described in Bhagavad Gita, is to surrender unto the Supreme Lord and become his devotee. But the Mayavad philosophy misleads one to defy the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and pose oneself as the Supreme Lord. Thus, it has misguided hundreds and thousands of innocent men.
Right. So let me ask you a very technical question. Suppose you start with the theory that the number 3 is less than number 2. And you prove something, whatever, some great formula, great thing. Is the conclusion going to be right or wrong? But after that assumption, you made done everything right. You understand my question?
It will be wrong, Prabhu,
Why would it be wrong?
because three is always more than 2. It cannot be less than 2. Whatever examples or proofs you give me, 3 is still 3. Yeah.
Right. So the word is premise. If you start with the wrong premise, the conclusion will be wrong. So the premise that 3 is smaller than 2 is a wrong premise. So anything you build upon it will be wrong. So for example, if you're building a skyscraper and the foundation is simply sand, you can make a great building with all sorts of Wi-Fi and all the high-tech things, but the building is not going to survive. Why? Because the foundation is not right. So similarly, Mayavadi philosophy starts with the philosophy, with the premise that the infinitesimal spark can be as large as the big fire. That the infinitesimal living entity can be as big as the God. And if you do that, that's a wrong premise. If whatever conclusion you come to, it's going to be wrong. And that's the problem with Mayavad philosophy. It starts with the wrong assumption that the living entity can be as big as the God. Right? And therefore it leads to atheism. Therefore there's no God. Therefore you have to defy the existence of God. There's no God. Okay? And millions of people have followed the philosophy, come to the wrong conclusion. Okay, does that make sense?
A lot of sense.
Okay, let's go to the next paragraph, please. Somebody who's not read.
Can I read it, Prabhu? I've already read, but
Is there anybody else who is not read?
There's no one who has not read.
Oh no, I see this, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
There is.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Aditi, it's okay.
yeah. In the Vedanta Sutra, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva has described that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is potent and that everything material or spiritual is but an emanation of his energy. The Lord, the Supreme Brahman, is the origin or source of everything. Janmadi asya yataha. And all other manifestations are emanations of different energies of the Lord. This is also confirmed in the Vishnu Purana. Ekadesha sthita yagner jyoshna vistarani yata parasya brahmanah shakti tathedam akhilam jagat. Whatever we see in this world is simply an expansion of different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is exactly like a fire.
Fire that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. This is
I can't hear you.
Now, oh, sorry.
बेचारा थका मांदा आया हुआ है सो तंग कर रही है अब तो इधर भी गायब हो गए प्रभु
Sorry, Babu.
हाँ बोलो हाँ
Start from here.
Whatever we see in this world is simply an expansion of different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is exactly like a fire that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. This is a very vivid example. Similarly, it is stated that just as everything in the material world exists in the sunshine, which is the energy of the sun, so everything exists on the basis of the spiritual and material energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, although Krishna is situated in his own abode, Goloka Eva Nivasati Akhilatam Bhutaha, where he enjoys his transcendental pastimes with the cowherd boys and gopis. He is nevertheless present everywhere, even within the atoms of this universe. Andantara stha paramanu chayantara stham. This is the verdict of the Vedic literature.
So this is from Brahma Samhita. Basically, even though the Lord is situated in Goloka, is by his Paramatma expansion, is permitting every atom everywhere. So he's in one place at the same time, he's everywhere. Just like the example of sun is located in one place, but through his energy, sunshine, is everywhere. Okay, so let's continue.
Okay. Unfortunately, the Mayavad philosophy, misguiding people by claiming the living entity to be the Lord, has created havoc throughout the entire world and led almost everyone to godlessness. By thus covering the glories of the Supreme Lord, the Mayavadi philosophers have done the greatest disservice to human society. It is to counteract these most abominable activities of the Mayavadi philosophers that Lord Chaitanya has introduced the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Harer Nama eva kevalam kalau nasti eva gatir anyatha. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. People should simply engage in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, for thus they will gradually come to understand that they are not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as they have been taught by the Mayavadi philosophers, but are eternal servants of the Lord. As soon as one engages himself in the transcendental service of the Lord, he becomes free. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogana sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Therefore, the Hare Krishna movement or Krishna consciousness movement is the only light for the foolish living entities who think either that there is no God or that if God exists, he is formless and they themselves are also God. These misconceptions are very dangerous, and the only way to counteract them is to spread the Hare Krishna movement. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So once again, going back to the same example of 3 being less than 2, we start with the defective assumption or premise. We're bound to get to the wrong result. The wrong result can cause chaos. So when they believe there's no God, they believe that God has no form, and they also believe there's no God, and then they also believe that they are God. I mean, think about this. There's no God, but I am God. What does that mean? God has no form, but I'm God. But you have a form. Anyway, my point is, it comes to very foolish conclusions, which basically take people to become atheists and therefore entangled in the material world for a very, very long time until they can take shelter of the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya is saying that in the age of Kali, that is the only shelter. Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Kevalam, only Hare Nam. Without that, there's no hope, no hope, no hope. And only when we perform pure devotional service can we get above the modes of material nature and therefore enter the spiritual platform. And that's the only hope we have. Otherwise, we're stuck here forever. Any questions or comments? Okay. All right then. Thank you so much. One chakal vitar bheshta kripas and
Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank you
Prabhuji.
so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Naina
Also,
Sharma
you
bhi
again.
that's
Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.